Okay, we are coming to the end of the Philosophy of Time series, and I think it's been a good series. Next time, after this, we're going to talk about time and history. We're going to get back into Hegelianism a little bit. I think it'll be interesting, and that'll be the conclusion of the maybe the kind of academic aspect of this series. And then I'm going to have a postscript on time and the autistic spectrum. So look out for that. All right, last time we discussed McTaggart and a kind of secular Western philosophy that comes very close to Buddhism, that comes very close to a lot of Eastern ideas about an eternal now transcending space, what we call space-time. For more secular-leaning eternalists like Einstein, they don't go quite that far, but they do believe in the idea. First of all, Einstein believes space-time is real. But he did call the idea of the specious present, or the idea of the now as we experience in this instant, quote, the persistent illusion. And I think it's interesting because if you really study the relativity of simultaneity, you do see the idea of now as a persistent illusion. If you want to know more about the train and the beanbag thing, here's Brian Greene's Fabric of the Cosmos, and he discusses it on page 55. Well, I'll give you the chapter. The chapter is called Relativity and the Absolute. And you can read that. And around page 55 through 58, you have a discussion of the train issue and simultaneity and different time frames on the train if the train's moving close to the speed of light. Well, the idea of the relativity of simultaneity is a very simple concept, and yet it's very more than just simple. If you have the shifting of the light cone, so to speak, then you really can't have one established way of extending the concept of now, meaning December 9th, 2011, to the whole universe. It's going to depend on frames of reference. Now, maybe I could argue that December 9th, 2011 is the same everywhere. Maybe I could argue that there is a present moment on Alpha Centauri, there's a present moment all throughout the universe, sure. But remember, or more or less, give or take, remember though that those exist within our frame of reference. So Alpha Centauri isn't moving away from us or towards us at relativistic speeds. So that's the difference right there. But see, even that is, and you might say, well, yeah, okay, there's an established present. There's an established frame of reference, but even that is complicated because if you go way, way out there, billions of light years out there, then the slightest movement that I might do back and forth will actually affect what the now is way, way out there. If there's a galaxy hundreds of billions of light years out there and I move and there's an alien observing, well, he wouldn't be observing me, but you know what I'm saying, an alien there, my concept of now with reference to that alien would change depending on whether I move towards or away from the alien. If I move towards the alien even a few feet, I might be hundreds or thousands of years into that alien's future. If I move away from that alien just a few feet, I'm hundreds or thousands of years in the past as far as that alien's concerned. You can see that with the light cones. I'm just shifting, I'm just undergoing a slight Lorentz transformation as I move backwards and forwards, but the further out there you go, the more that's a difference in time. Now, that does not affect causality. And the reason it does not affect causality is because, again, of the limitations of the speed of light. But it does lend credence to the idea of what's called eternalism. So, in general, relativity theorists tend towards eternalism. I should state that there is an opposing school called presentism. And presentists state that the future does not exist because it is not determined. You can't say something exists when it hasn't come yet. My guess is that quantum physicists tend towards presentism. Not always, but my guess is that quantum physicists with the idea of indeterminacy will tend towards presentism. I personally believe that you can be, and I stated this at the beginning of the series, and it was my intent to kind of prove this, that you could be an eternalist and a believer in contingency at the same time. It's really very simple. Our choices determine the future. However, those choices and the future exist in space-time, but they don't exist now. Therefore, we have the choice to produce the best future possible. And if we make that choice, that is reality. And so I'll allow that to stand. I can't prove that. Believers in determinism and in contingency could easily call me inconsistent, but I tend to believe that as my personal philosophy. But I freely admit that, it remains as yet unproven. And I also want to say that these questions are not scientific in my view. They're philosophical. Even if we lived in a Newtonian universe, what time is would still be an important question. Okay, Jason Zari, who's been definitely a mentor in this whole in terms of teaching me, helping me to learn forms of analytic philosophy that are not mathematical. I was familiar with mathematical philosophy. I was familiar with continental philosophy, but forms of analytic philosophy that are non-mathematical. Okay, he wrote something called Reflections on Eternalism Part 1 on his blogspot. And he is an eternalist, and he is suggesting that we should not fear the future because, well, all time exists, so past, present are the same. Why fear the future? Quote, if all events are eternally existent, it makes as much and as little sense to look backward to the past events as it does to look forward to future ones. So if, e.g., I'm sitting in class and the class has been going for 10 minutes, why do I not post-anticipate, quote unquote, the beginning of the class, just as I anticipate the end of the class when there are only 10 minutes left to go? After all, if eternalism is true, then there is no such thing as the passage of time, quote unquote, or the absolute termination of a process. And I might add to that, there are some classes I've had where I really would like to somehow get a time loop back in time if it's 10 minutes into the class, then take a ship with the relativistic speed and the drill, okay? Unfortunately, I was not able to do that. We do experience the passage of time, and that is a boost in the favor of presentism, that there is something that you would call the passage of time that we are fixed in according to them. But, he goes on. And so does it make sense, skipping down, so does it make sense to look forward to future events? So does it make sense to look forward to future events? If eternalism is true, I'm afraid it does not. Those who uphold common sense may take this as an indictment of eternalism. Those who uphold eternalism, who attempt to view things, quote, under the form of eternity, as Spinoza put it, can only take it as confirmation of just how limited our everyday perspective on reality really is. So, in other words, what he's saying is that if you are an eternalist, yeah, be consistent about it. Look at reality Spock-like. A little bit from Jason is very much of what you could call a rational mystic. He looks at the universe very Spock-like. I know him as a friend, and that's a good trait. And he's saying, if you're really going to walk the walk with eternalism, sure, look at reality in a Spock-like kind of way. Now, I'm going to add something to that, though. If presentism is true, I think there's also an argument for overcoming fear and for not fearing the future, but instead doing your best to make the best future possible. And that would be, well, you don't fear something that doesn't exist, right? If the future doesn't exist, why fear it? If the future does exist, why would fear make any difference? And so, in a sense, under both philosophies, I would say that there is a good cause for overcoming fear and trying to make the best future possible without fear. So, yeah, definitely Reflections on Eternalism Part 1 is a very interesting article. It's very short. And, yeah, also I definitely encourage those of you who are unemployed scholars to check out his website, Scholardarity. I have it linked below. Okay, well, the next video is going to be on the philosophy of history. I'm going to get back into Hegelianism a little bit, and then the one after that is going to be a personal. It's going to be less than fully academic, but it's going to be called The Passage of Time in the Autistic Spectrum. Interesting. Let me conclude on the issue of eternalism by stating that I personally would be an eternalist in the sense that I don't think that there's a rational argument for this fleeting now as being the thing that exists, because I'm of the impression that which is ultimately true would be that which withstands the test of time. And the more timeless something is, the truer it is. Now, that's a bias in my own philosophy that I can't really support or uphold, but it is what I tend to believe, and I might as well lay my cards on the table. Thank you.